back, relax, and maybe get yourself a snack. Me and you gonna have a little chat about books. Hey guys! So I am here today to tell you about the SBFBO, which is the Self-Published Fantasy Blog Off. If you don't know about this, then you may not have been watching my channel a couple of years back when I was previously a judge for this competition. It's now been going 10 years. This is year 10, which is wild. And I'm very, very excited to be returning as a judge. I think I mentioned it in one of my previous videos that I would be returning, and the competition officially starts on the 1st of June. From the 1st of June for the next 5 months is the sort of blogger reviewer phase, where all of the 10 different bloggers and reviewers who are reviewing books will be given 30 titles which were submitted by authors. They have to be standalone titles, fantasy titles, and they have to have been self-published, and they were all submitted into the competition a couple of weeks ago. Mark Lawrence, who runs the competition and is an author in his own right and has some great books, he then sorted out the 300 entries and allocated them randomly to the 10 judging groups and judges, and then everyone gets 30 books that they have 5 months to read, review, and then each of the bloggers or reviewers will then choose one title from their 30 that they will put forward as their finalist, and that finalist will go on to be judged by all the other reviewers for everyone to compare and contrast and see what they want to rate things, and eventually we will end up with one ultimate winner for the SBFBO round 10, or SBFBO X, whatever you want to call it. If you want more detail on the competition, then Mark Lawrence has everything on his blog, so I'll link that down below and you can go and check it out. The competition is closed for this year for entries. If you want to follow along for cuts and things like that, reviews, etc., then I will link that down below as well, which is another page on his blog. There is also a Facebook group and a Discord group, so I will try and link them below. And it's just a really nice community. It's a fun community of people who are interested in self-publishing, who are authors who self-publish, or who are reviewers that love to read self-published fantasy. There are actually 2 spin-off competitions as well now, which I only knew about one, so now there's 2. There is an indie novellery one and there is a sci-fi one, and I will link both of those competitions below as well. I'm not a judge for either of them, but I just think it's really cool that the SPFBO has sparked a couple of other competitions of a similar kind, and I just think it's great. So all of that being said, the main thing that I wanted to show you guys today is my 30 books that I have been allocated, which I'm very excited about. So I'm going to do a quick descriptor just based off of Goodreads for each book. As I say, I haven't read all of them yet, so I don't know if I'm going to like them or not. I would love to showcase them all to you guys, and if you're interested in any of them and you want to pick them up and read them, usually self-published books, especially if you get them digital format, are relatively cheap, so please do support any that sound interesting and pick them up. So you will be seeing reviews of these books as and when I get to them. And in the meantime, to get us all excited, let's have a look at the covers and the taglines for these books. And I do believe that a lot of the books in this batch actually have LGBT either authors or characters or both within them, so that's something worth noting. And the order I'm going to go through them is actually just going to be from page order, so like the most pages down to the least pages, purely because that is the way that Goodreads have ranked them for now for me in my list. The first one that I have been given is Blood Runs True, which is a lit RPG fantasy story. This one is my longest book, just under 700 pages for this, and I'm excited because I've only read a couple of lit RPGs, but the ones I've read I've enjoyed, and I tend to enjoy chunky books when I get into them if they're well done, so I'm hopeful that I will like this one. It seems to be about a half-spirit who is taken into an academy and has to go through the academy to learn how to defend the Empire. And of course, if you know me, then you know that I do tend to enjoy a story about going and progressing through some sort of an academy, school, that kind of thing. So if it's done well, this one could do well with me. Let's hope. The next one on my list is The Hunter. This one has about 630 pages, and I really like the cover of this one. I think it's very ethereal, very peaceful and quiet, and it just seems a little bit unassuming, but it seems exactly how it should for a hunter. It sounds like it's about an older character who has a friend who is a wolf, which is always good, and a younger character who comes into his life in a way and kind of ends up being a bigger part of his life than anyone could have anticipated, and possibly helping him to re-find his love for living. The next one on my list is the Humane Society for Creatures and Cryptids. I have to say I really like the description just from the title of this. It sounds very odd and unusual and a little bit quirky, which I'm all about. It also sounds like it takes some influence from Grecian gods or cultures, because the main character's family is Greek and they have immigrated in with some magical people into a village which does not really want to accept them. And some of the reviews mention like a female Bigfoot, which just sounds very intriguing as well. So I'm definitely excited about this one. It's just under 600 pages, about 567, so still pretty chunky, admittedly, but that could be a really good thing for development, so I'm looking forward to this. The next one I have is The Flight of the Scion, and this appears to be about a young girl who was destined hopefully to have magic, but turns out not to. She throws herself into mechanical engineering and devices, but then something goes wrong with one of her devices and she is then led on a journey with some other fantastical companions. This one is about 520 pages, so again, quite a chunky one, and I'm intrigued because the blurb doesn't seem to give a huge amount away about the mechanical devices and the journey that she has to go on. So I'm looking forward to that. The next one I've been given is A Bastard's Birthright. This one says it's all about a magical ancient artifact that has been revealed, and every different person and group in the world seems to have an interest in being able to claim this artifact and hopefully do something like control the world with it. So it definitely sounds like it's going to be a bit of an epic one with lots of different people vying to get to and claim this artifact. And what is the artifact? What can it do? I don't know. So very intrigued. The next one I have is Breaking of Realms, and this one says it's all about dragons, which is great to me because I love dragon stories. It sounds as though in this world, dragon riding and being a powerful dragon rider is linked hand in hand with development of cities and towns and that sort of thing. And we are following a character who aims to do this, but they have not been able to get an egg to hatch for them until a wild one turns up and begs for their aid. And this one comes in at about 460 pages, so a little bit shorter than the others, but still up there. Next, I have A Cursed Son. And this one is described as an enemies to lovers fantasy, which focuses on a young woman who is trained to be a kind of backup or replacement stand-in for the real princess. She believes that she has some sort of kindred spirit calling to her, and I guess the story is about how the two of them connect. And I guess it could also be a little bit steamy if it's an enemy to lovers, so we'll see. Next, I have Tower of Dogs. And this one sounds like it's set in a world where there was a big catastrophe that happened which drew away a lot of the magic, and then the magic started coming back, and people who were prone to kind of falling ill under the magic have been called berserkers. They are kind of trying to take over the land a bit, and there are pockets of civilization fighting back against them, but we follow a brother and sister who are aiming to get away from their civilization where the berserker threat is becoming more and more pressing. The next one I have is Dreams of a Dragon Girl, and this is about a world where dragons did exist and then vanished, but then they suddenly have started to come back, and along with them coming back, people are very scared because illness is starting to creep through villages and towns, and they think it is a dragon plague. We follow a young girl who believes in dragons and believes that they are not necessarily the bad guys that everyone seems to think they are, but when this curse or illness seems to start creeping through the villages, this doesn't bode well for her, and her beliefs are going to get her into trouble. The next one I have on my list is Dark City Rising. I have to say I really like the cover for this. It feels a little bit of a historical fantasy, and I definitely think it's going to have some like dark academia side as well. We're following a young man who wants to fix the archaic magical education system, but when he starts to meddle in things, things don't necessarily go his way, and he in fact ended up changing the world. It sounds like academia is at the centre of this, and there's also influence from Scotland in particular, so I'm intrigued about all of that. It definitely sounds like it could be a bit different from some of the others, because I don't tend to have many sort of historical fantasy dark academia reads. So yeah, I'm intrigued to see how this one plays out, definitely. The next one I have on my list, The Highwayman, Kennedy Thornwick. We are following a young man who is in prison, and then his friend, who is the highwayman, is going to come and try and attempt to free him from prison. So it sounds a little bit like a wild sword and sorcery adventure, maybe. And not only will he, when he gets out, have to navigate an entirely new world, one that has shaped him very differently from when he went into prison, but also he'll have to learn how to use the magic again, and what all of that entails, I don't know, so could be interesting to see. The next one I have is The Poisoned Empire, and to be honest, I'm not going to read much of the blurb on this one, but I just read the tagline and it sounded really cool. Cinderella, feral, meets the lies of Loch Lamora in this lush romantic fantasy set in a world inspired by the Eastern Roman Empire, which truly does sound like a weird mixture of things. Cinderella being a fairy tale, and then Eastern Empires being a little bit of a non-Western setting. And then, yeah, Lies of Loch Lamora is quite a sword and sorcery fun series, so it's a big claim to kind of clash up your story with that. So I'm intrigued. If it can deliver all of those things, it could be great. Next, I have Sneak Thief. So this one sounds like we are following a sneak thief character who kind of just is a bit unlucky with his lot in life, and he's working with a bandit crew. And then we're also following a young man who is from an old family and who saw his friend get carted away by the church, who will take anyone away who's not been given a gift. And so the two of them, the sneak thief and the young man, have to work together. Next, we have Unmagical, a witchy mystery. This one is described as a character-driven, tarot-focused fantasy mystery, which is all about a young woman not exposing her community and looking into the mystery of her father disappearing. And we have a very snarky main character, apparently, which sounds good to me because I like that. It does seem to imply that it's a contemporary book as well, so a little bit different because a lot of these are high or epic fantasies rather than contemporaries. So I'm intrigued to try this one out, and I'll definitely go for it when I'm in the mood for a contemporary. Next, we have Thornbane the Lost, and this one sounds like a bit of a wild ride. It is about a young woman who wakes up one day and she has been hexed, and therefore she turns into a demon. And the family around her have all been murdered, so it's kind of her adventure into what can she do about this. She gains some sort of power, and that power becomes her only hope. The next one I have is Whisper for Eternity, and this one seems to be about gods. We have a character who is brought back into the world and is tasked with finding the missing goddess of the underworld. And alongside that mystery, they're also uncovering other mysteries, such as an ancient and evil book. The next one on my list is What the Echoes Say. This one is a fantasy which covers multiple viewpoints and spans lots of years. It's a world that is being ravaged by war, and there are dark creatures coming into play and sinister, nefarious beings in the background as well. So a pretty sprawling one. The next one I have is Red Flags, and this one sounds like a relatively contemporary style one. It's about an agent who is part of the Department of Supernatural Activity, and for some reason they are assigned as one of the main players on a reality TV show which is called Red Flags. Alongside the weirdness of this whole setup, apparently one of the other people who is on the show, a dating show, and a contestant, is actually accused of being a demon. And so our main character's task is obviously to go on this show, but also to hunt down this demon. So this does sound like a bit of a humorous, wild ride, and I think this will be a nice mix-up from a lot of the others in my batch. The next one I have is Demon's Vow. I tell you what, demons are seeming like they are a big theme this year in my batch. A lot of these have mentioned demons, haven't they? This one sounds like a wild ride. It's about a young character who has some sort of inner demon within him, and there is a secret portal. There is also a village which is being threatened by the demon, and it seems like there is rather a lot of chaos going on. So quite a fast-paced one, I would imagine. The next one on my list is called Into Fair Land, and this one sounds a little bit like it's kind of fairy tale-esque because it's obviously based within Fae. We are following a character who goes into their world to try and do something with the sword, and whilst there he falls in love and he marries and ends up having some children. And of course this can't go unnoticed, so the fairies are trying to swap their Fae children with the children that these two have had, and the story goes from there. I've definitely heard stories and folktales about Fae switching children with humans and so forth, so I think this is definitely a play on that, and I am intrigued. Next I have Thorns, and this one is about a character, again, who has had relations with a demon via a contract that they have managed to survive, and now they are working in a pizzeria. It sounds as though our main character is looking to start afresh and have a new life, but there is a drug taking over the city that he has moved to, and along the way he may indeed find some romance and some magical stuff going on. The next one on my list is Cursed Cocktails, which sounds a little bit like it would be in the same vein as Legends and Lattes. It's kind of a cozy fantasy. And we are following an elf who is now in retirement and looking forward to sort of just settling down in a warmer climate and enjoying their life. They bring with them a book which is very special of recipes, presumably cocktails or drinks, and I love a cocktail, so I am immediately drawn to this one, I must admit. It also seems to have probably the most ratings out of all the books that I have in my batch, so that bodes kind of well. The next one I have is Death and the Taxman, and this appears to be about the Grim Reaper coming to try and take away a taxman, and somehow the Grim Reaper switches into the body of the taxman, I believe. So it sounds like it's kind of a comedy-esque, fantastical book, and I am very much looking forward to some light-hearted reads in amongst the heavier ones, so hopefully this will be that. The next one I have is Of Blood and Stone, and this one sounds like a bit of an odd mashup of different things. It's got a gargoyle, or a half-human, half-gargoyle character as the main character, which is something I've not really seen in fantasy. It's definitely a kind of fantastical creature who gets overlooked quite often. And then this character is involved in tracking down corrupt police, secrets, all kinds of things in the city under the guise of the name Dread Knight. So definitely sounds like it's got a lot going on from the blurb, so I hope that we can see a real fun story through the middle of it all. The next one I have is Heart of Bones, and this one again feels like maybe it begins out as a little bit of a cozy read. We're following a character who has gone to try and have a normal life and wants to just run a bookshop, but when a ghost shows up on the doorstep, and then shortly this is followed by a detective looking into a murder, they know that their life is not really going to stay quiet as they hope. Next, I have A Drifting Sun, and I have to say this is another cover that I like the look of. Very ethereal woman on the front. So we are following a character called Iggy, who is apparently born without a face, and yet they are able to use a gift, which is telekinesis, to get by through life. However, this gift kind of feels a little bit like a curse sometimes, and when he disappears, his sister ends up trying to follow him and track him down. The next one I have is Infinite Rise of a Rebel, and this one has honestly the shortest blurb I've ever seen. It says that Leon Hearthbringer is being watched, and the enslavers of his kind are after his ancestral powers. I don't know if this one is YA or middle grade or children's fiction, but it definitely feels a little bit more geared that way from the cover, so I am very intrigued. If it is a younger read, then that would maybe make sense for the short description of the blurb and the shorter length of pages, because this one's only just over 200 pages. The next one on my list is Born of Scourge. This one is a story about a fallen star who falls down to the world and is caught by a princess who is then going to die. The star must go and save the world. So it's all about how a fallen star might be able to influence and save our world. The next one, which is on my list, is Wings So Soft. This is a story set in a realm that the author has already written in, and it's got owls as a key part of the story, hence the cover. We follow two different characters, one of whom has a real owl and the other who has a mechanical owl. Both of the owls are used for surveillance in the world, and they are in a war between their kind and the humans. It's also a love story and a romance story, and that is a key part of the plot. The final one on my list is The Shepherds of the Sunstone, and this one is described as an epic fantasy which follows a couple, one of whom dreams that they have been captured, and then that turns into a reality, and then the wife goes on the hunt to try and retrieve our main character, and along the way she joins forces with a group of people, and one person in particular with an earth-shattering power. And of of course there is a malevolent threat threatening the whole world as well. Because why not? Those are my 30 books that I've been given for SBFBO this year. As always, I am super excited to dive into some of these. I've already read a few of them and I'm excited to get to tell you guys all about loads of new authors and people that you might want to check out. Please let me know in the comments below what your favourite cover was and what your favourite sort of mini teaser descriptor was. Are there any that you are going to go and pick up? I would love to hear about it. Thank you all so much for watching and stay tuned on my channel for reviews of these books coming soon. Bye!
Thank you for watching my video today. Go pick up a book, then come back and chat with me again.